Hey everyone! Yeah, that's right. 2 Kaiju No.8 videos in the same week. You didn't think I was gonna go over chapter 33 after what happened? Come on. So, upon watching this video, if you're like, wait, Dan, I haven't caught up on Kaiju No.8, well, you're in luck because I put out a Kaiju catch-up yesterday. So go ahead and click that card above right now, catch up, and then come on back. Because chapter 33 builds off of what happens in chapter 32. And I know most people will be like, Dan, usually the next chapter builds on what happens from the previous chapter anyway. But if you're caught up on Kaiju No.8, you know that right now is a very momentous occasion for the story. But you know the deal. For the intro, we try to stay mostly spoiler-free for those that haven't picked up or even read the title. So if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. And if you want to become one of my regulars here at the bar, when you hit that notification bell, be sure to change your preferences from personalized to all. That way, you never miss a video here on the channel. But now let's head up the bar and go grab ourselves a drink. Alright, welcome to the bar, folks. So, chapter 33 of Kaiju No.8. Now, during the intro, I said that this chapter specifically builds off the development that occurred in chapter 32, being that Mina drew her gun on Kafka and finally apprehended him as Kaiju No.8. Now, Kafka's gone peacefully, and at the end of the chapter, we were left with a huge hole in our stomach wondering what was going to happen, because there was this massive break in between. Well, chapter 33 is here, and it does a pretty damn good job of filling the hole in our hearts, while at the same time making us panic for Kafka's life. One of the things I've said during my prior videos about the most recent arc was that Kafka transforming was an inevitability. As much as we were hoping for him to skate by just for a little bit longer without anyone else finding out his identity, it was really only a matter of time. Kafka's heart is way too big to watch innocent people die, so there was no way he was gonna let something like this slide at the end of chapter 31. But upon reading chapter 32, I will admit, I got really choked up seeing Hoshina's head down and Mina pulling her gun on Kafka. But look, enough of that, let's hit the wall and break down chapter 33, because I loved it, man. Alright, so the chapter starts off with our biggest fears becoming realized. The higher-ups at the Defense Force have received the intel that Kaiju No.8 has been captured, and in fact, he was one of the soldiers on the Defense Force. And while they strategize about what to do with Kafka as to whether they should turn him into weaponry or use him as a biological weapon, the higher-ups have already decided that Kafka is no longer a human and shouldn't be considered as one. But, and this is a very big but, like a capital but, the person who's their leader, the guy who's the head of the Defense Force, is somebody that I have hinted who might not be a very nice person, and that's Kikoru's father, Isao Shinomiya. With him involved, this whole situation becomes a very complicated one. For the most part during this arc, we're probably going to see the Defense Force as the main antagonists. I don't want to say that this is almost like a stereotypical trope for these types of genre of shonen, but like I've said before in the previous video, let's be honest here, whether it's Bleach's Soul Society warming up to Ichigo, or Jujutsu High warming up to Yuji, usually the biggest allies start off as foes. I mean, everybody in Blue Exorcist wanted to kill Rin until they found out that he would arguably be the person to actually bring down Satan. So with that being said, we can be nervous for Kafka, but at the same time, we should be more excited as to see what's actually going to play out from this situation. Anywho, the chapter then moves back to Kafka, who's locked inside of a massive containment cell. And pretty much what they're doing is they're running simple tests on Kafka to see if he's about to transform into a kaiju and kill everybody inside the compound. And they get nothing. And like I said before, one of my favorite things to do is look for subtle details that might be skipped over. And to be honest, it's kind of why I forget to point out some really obvious things. I'm looking at you, Overhaul Scene. But yeah, I get caught up in subtle nuance like it's nothing. Like, for instance, when he's reminiscing about Kikoru telling him that if the Defense Force finds out about him, they'll immediately turn him into a weapon, we get this close-up of Hoshina. And while we all know Hoshina to be the eyes-closed, mysterious guy, during this close-up, his eyes are wide open, and you can see that he looks a little bit ragged. This should have been our first inkling that the squads over at Division 3 don't like what's going on with Kafka. And I'd go as far as to think that Hoshina probably hasn't gotten a wink of sleep since Kafka's been detained because he's terrified about what will happen to Kafka. These are very honorable people. We've seen that Division 3 acknowledges other people's mistakes and they try to grow from each other's mistakes. They've had drinks with one another and they've had time to legitimately bond with one another. And now one of them was hiding a massive secret, but they never once used that secret to get ahead of anybody else. Kafka, for all intents and purposes, failed that exam to become an officer. And he became an officer on his own merits, not even off of the merits of Kaiju No. 8. But Kafka's reminiscing is cut off by the fact that Mina is there to escort him back to the maritime base. Now, my guess would be that the maritime base is where all of those higher-ups were. And as he's being escorted out, he tries to talk to Mina, but then he stops himself because he kind of realizes it's not really the right time. Then the doors open up and the entirety of Division 3 is standing there as escorts. And I really like how everybody is drawn from the point of view of Kafka. Meaning, when Kafka says that he can't bear to look anybody in the eyes, we get this panel where you see everybody, but you don't see their eyes. Kafka feels like he seriously betrayed every single one of them with his actions. And the one thing that really hits Kafka in the chest is he really feels like he let down Reno. That kid's been doing his best to make sure Kafka doesn't reveal himself. But one thing that drew Reno to Kafka was that big ol' heart of his. If Kafka doesn't transform and punch that bomb created by the boss kaiju, everybody dies. Civilians, soldiers, everyone. And as Kafka takes a deep breath and gives up all hope, Reno calls out to him and tells him, "Sir, I'll have faith that you'll come back to us." And the door slams in Kafka's face as he stands there bewildered. He may look at them like he's lost hope, but every single person standing there in line has not given up on Kafka. See, now it's starting to sink in a little bit more for him. The security escort was just for the people in the van, but the entirety of Division 3 had shown up. And then the most talking that we've ever seen Mina do occurs. She tells Kafka that at first she was shocked to find out that he was a kaiju, but then seeing him run out and do such a selfless act, she couldn't help but think that this is a total Kafka move. And right then and there, she knew that she had to do her duty, but in her heart, she knew what was right. So, she's gonna do everything that she can to prove to the Self-Defense Force that Kafka is a person. And the big reason why everyone in Division 3 showed up is because there isn't one goddamn person in Division 3 that thinks Kafka Hibino is a threat. And just like that, the glass that had no hope left inside of it was instantly refilled. But unfortunately, now she has to have Kafka sit down because she has to strip him of any military rank he has. But before she can even finish her words, he stops her and asks her, can he still strive to be at her side one day? And that's when we get a little bit of the Kafka-Mina romance for the first time, really, when you think about it, because she says, sure, I'll be waiting for you. And the teary-eyed Kafka completely loses it right here because he has hope once again, because this is the moment where he finally realizes after all of these years, Mina never forgot their promise. But now the political fight begins, and to play devil's advocate, the kaiju have been ravaging the planet for pretty much as long as Kafka has been alive. So my guess is, if you're in your 60s or at least your late 50s and you're a part of the Defense Force, you're not going to be very fond of kaiju. Meaning it's going to take some extreme convincing to make those gentlemen acknowledge that Kafka won't actually be, a detriment to the Defense Force and actually be an asset to the Defense Force. And even further devil's advocate, the fact that Kafka is finally captured means that we might be able to find out a little bit more about the origins behind his human evolution into a kaiju. Remember, think back. The kaiju that initially jumped into his body in Chapter 1 was sentient. It spoke. It said, I found you, and then jumped inside of him. So if anything, maybe the people over in the maritime base might be able to shed some light on Kafka's situation, even to him. Now, as for Kafka's defense, if there were two people in the Defense Force that I'd want on my side, it's Mina and Hoshina. That, and I wouldn't be surprised if at one point Kikoru corners her father and stands up to him for the first time on Kafka's behalf. It's gonna take some heavy convincing before the Defense Force just lets him go back to Division 3. Because I know we kinda don't want to say it, but for all we know, Kafka could indeed be a sleeper cell. Like I said, whatever jumped inside of him was a sentient creature, so whether or not that sentience has disappeared is up for debate. Either way, that's gonna do it for this week's video. I know I've been slacking in my Kaiju number 8 department, but the more and more you guys ask for my videos, the more and more I'm encouraged to do them. I do appreciate that there's still a bunch of kaiju heads out there and you guys are pushing me more and more to start covering this story. So maybe this time, I'll try to stay a little bit more consistent. But for now, I'm gonna get out of here. I'll catch you guys later. Cheers!